To replace the screen on your Galaxy S4, you will need a small Phillips and bladed screwdriver and a plastic separation tool. You can use a spudger, guitar pick, plastic knife or your thumbnail. You might also need a pair of tweezers and a sucker tool of some kind. This is from a car windscreen phone mount. You could use a sat-nav or maybe a fridge one. You can buy a new screen with and without the metal and plastic frame. This one was provided by eTrade Supply. You'll find a link in the description. If you're not replacing the frame, you need to apply fresh double-sided tape along the bottom and the top. This is a Scotch brand 3M and is extremely sticky and flexible compared to normal household tape. You also need to use a heat source. This is a hot air heat gun. You could use a fan heater or maybe a hairdryer. So if you can, make sure it's switched off and remove the battery cover and the battery, and make sure you take out your SIM and micro SD card. Now undo all the screws on the back. These are all the same size, so don't worry about getting them mixed up. You can skip this or any other stage by clicking the link at the top of the video. Now using your thumbnail or a plastic tool, you can ease the loudspeaker assembly away from the casing. And again using your thumbnail or a thin tool, starting at the bottom, work your way around the outside edge, which separates the clips as you go around. And then you can lift the rear housing away. Before we go any further, it's a good idea to test the screen to make sure it's working okay. Start by disconnecting the main screen flex cable. Then offer your new screen cable into place. Keep moving it around until you feel it snap down. Now place the battery back in and press the power button. And now you can let it fully boot to get to all those messages and missed calls that you couldn't see. Once you're satisfied that's working, shut the phone down. And it's a good idea to remove the battery before you disconnect the screen. Now we need to remove the USB flex cable. Insert your screwdriver here and twist and lift that metal clamp off. Now carefully and gently disconnect the 3G GSM antenna flex cable and unplug it this end as well. Now unplug the home and touch key flex cable and the USB flex cable. Using a thin blade, gently separate the USB board from the front screen assembly. Now undo this single black screw. Unplug the headphone socket. The proximity sensor and the front camera. Remove this metal clip. Take out your camera. And gently lift the earpiece and proximity sensor. Now we can lift the main board. Make sure the camera's moving freely. And lift the main board away. Now remove the headphone socket. This screw is slightly smaller than the others, so you can't get it mixed up. That'll lift away nice and easy. Now remove the vibrating motor. And finally, the notification LED diffuser. Now we need to separate the screen from the frame. If you have a sucker tool, you can place it on the glass. If the glass is shattered, then you won't be able to use a sucker tool. So after turning on your heat source, try and get the temperature to around about 60 or 70 C. Using gloves so you don't burn your hands, get the screen and the frame nice and warm, and if you don't have a sucker tool, you can use a plastic knife to wedge between the frame and the glass. If the screen is shattered, then use any plastic tool to lift the glass away from the frame. It's also a good idea to place tape over a shattered screen to stop the glass splinters from going everywhere. If you don't have one of these spudger tools, you can use a plastic knife instead. As long as you don't damage the screen frame. Just keep working your way around the outside edge. You can see the knife is going between the digitizer and the display. take extra care as you go around this corner, as you have the flex cable for the home and touch keys going through, so don't push the knife in too far on that corner. Keep working your way around the outside edge. And now the digitizer and the glass has come away from the display. Be careful at the bottom, as we still have the home and touch keys attached to the screen. So try and keep the touch and home keys attached to the screen. And here you need to lift the home key away from the screen frame. So gently lift that away from the frame. And don't worry too much about the adhesive. So we're going to replace that. Carefully pull the flex cable through the frame, and if you damage the home and touch key cable, they're quite easy to buy online. Now I'm removing the AM OLED display. This is only 0.4mm thick, so it's pretty much impossible to remove this screen from the frame without damaging the display. It's a good idea to put some tape over this glass to stop the small splinters from going everywhere. Once you're underneath, try and get your plastic tool underneath the adhesive, and that makes it a little bit easier. You can do this without any heat, but it makes the adhesive a lot stronger and it takes a lot more effort to remove the screen. Switch off the heat source, and now we need to go all the way around the edges, making sure that all the old adhesive is removed. If you buy a new screen frame, it comes with this double tape already applied. And there is no need to clean this adhesive off. Now we need to recover the home and touch key from the digitizer. Using a thin blade, carefully ease the touch keys away from the screen. Try and keep the adhesive on the touch key. Now feed this through into your screen frame. And make sure the home button is fully located on those small pins line up with the holes on the cable. Now you can push the touch keys down into place. Now replace the home button. This will only go in the correct way, as we have to line up the small holes with the pins on the case. This can be a little bit tricky. Just keep trying to push that down onto the pin. The same this side. Make sure that's working okay. If you're replacing the screen frame, you may need to recover this speaker grill from your old one. So you can push that out from behind. And then exchange that over to your new frame. Now we need to replace the double-sided tape. Let's place that along the top. If you don't have access to this double-sided mobile phone tape, it won't do any harm to leave it off, but you will find dust gets between the screen and the sensors and the camera. Now we need to make sure that the holes for the camera and the sensors are clear. This one's for the proximity and gesture sensor. If the proximity sensor is not pushed all the way up against the glass, then it could cause your screen to go blank during voice calls. This one's for your front-facing camera. This is for the ambient light sensor. And this last one is the notification LED. Once you're satisfied that's done, we can place some tape on the bottom. Once you're happy that's ready for the new screen to go into place, it's a good idea to do a dry practice run. Take your new display and without removing the protective film, place the cable through. And make sure the speaker grill lines up. And the home button works okay. And the flex cable's not trapped. Now push the screen away from the frame. Now remove all of the protective film. Again, place that cable through and don't bring it down until you've got it lined up with the speaker grill. Just make sure it's nice and flush on both sides. And double check that home button is working okay. Make sure the cable isn't trapped. Now clear any adhesive that's left around the sensors. Try and use a plastic or wooden toothpick, otherwise you might scratch the inside of the screen. So now we can give it a good push to stick it down. Now replace the vibrating motor. The LED light diffuser. The headphone socket, which also contains the ambient light and notification LED. Place that single small silver screw back in. Now we can replace the main board. Make sure it goes underneath the flex connector for the headphone socket. And replace that single black screw. Reconnect the main screen cable. Headphone socket. Now replace the earpiece, proximity and gesture sensor. And make sure the gesture sensor goes all the way up to the screen. Now replace the front camera. Replace the retaining clip. And when you put this on, make sure it snaps down into place and that the clips are all the way home. Now reconnect the flex cables. Now we can replace the USB flex cable. Plug the flex cable in first at this end. And gently push that down into place. And make sure the small holes in the circuit board line up with the pins on the casing. Try not to push on the gold sprung connections. Now reconnect the home and touch keys. Place that metal clamp on the USB port. Now reconnect the 3G GSM antenna cable. This can be a little bit tricky. Just line it up until you feel it snap down into place. Now replace the rear housing. Making sure all those clips lock down into place. Replace all the screws. Now replace the loudspeaker antenna assembly. Push that until it clips into place. Replace those final 4 screws. Replace your SIM and micro SD card and the battery. And the battery cover. Switch it on. And you now have a fully repaired Samsung Galaxy S4. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and give me the thumbs up, and I shall make some more.